I want to take a moment and talk about cover, specifically late season cover. And a lot of times people think like humans. What would they want? What do they want to do? Maybe they want to curl up under a cedar tree or something. But we need to think about a deer. And to be good stewards or good managers, we need to meet the biological needs of the white-tailed deer when we're managing their habitat. I mentioned the biological needs. Of course, all critters do better when stress is reduced and they're not under stress from predators or thermal, not too hot, too cold, all those things. So we know that if we were living in a third world country, we're probably not as healthy on average as we are in this great nation of America, because we have high quality food, most people have good housing, all that kind of stuff. So, same is true with deer, but we need to think in a deer's mind. And we want them to be healthy. We want to reduce stress from predators, maybe work the balance predators, get those Duke traps out there, predator-prey balances, or give them good escape cover. And escape cover is thick down where deer is bedded, not getting slapped in the face when we walk through there by limbs, but think 0 to 18 inches off the ground. What's going to provide really good cover there where they can hide and detect predators at the same time using their nose or eyes and escape. A big part of deer surviving predators, because there's predators everywhere, is being able to escape, and that's real important, and I'll talk about that in a second. There's a lot of popular opinions about creating cover, but I like to look at facts and huge data sets. I want you to think about South Dakota, North Dakota, Western Kansas, Eastern Colorado, the Great Prairie. There's more places I could put in there, okay? Prairie is thick native grasses, some small shrubs, and not many trees. It can be blowing, 20 miles an hour below zero in South Dakota, and deer are doing fine in that habitat because they're down in there where the wind is not getting to them, and during daylight hours, the sun is shining down them, and that radiant heat is warming them up. And I often talk about being inside a pickup or a redneck blind when the sun is shining. You're warm in there because the windows are shut. That wind's blowing like crazy, but it's not getting to you. Well, that's the same when you're laying down in really thick native grasses. They're shearing the wind off above you, but the sun's energy is coming down. Now, the number one factor, of course, of a deer staying warm is high quality food. That big old rumen, that is really creating a lot of heat when all those bacteria, trillions of bacteria in a deer's stomach are breaking down the food. And that creates heat. And I often think about the great farmer Gabe Brown. A lot of y'all probably don't know Gabe. You can Google him. Gabe runs cattle outside all winter, barely feeds hay in South Dakota, and very profitable, making a living because he's got really good forage. And those cows are doing fine at 40 below zero. So if we've got good grass to block the wind, native grasses, shrubs, whatever, not hardwood trees and not cedar trees where it's wide open below them. That's shaded, cold. You notice the snow doesn't melt under cedar trees for a long time. So we're talking where the sun can get in at least part of the day, warm them up, good food, and thick cover down low. That's quality cover for that time of year. When we're talking about grass, you probably hear about switchgrass. That's popular and that's a great thing, but switchgrass can get really tall and thick. That's great. It can get almost too thick. I don't like monocultures of switchgrass. Ideally, I like about 20% switchgrass, 40% big blue stem, 40% little blue stem, depending on where you are, Indian grass, buffalo grass. That way there's pockets or a mosaic, and deer can get where it's thicker, thinner, shorter, taller, all that. A monoculture of switchgrass is not good deer habitat. Another popular topic you hear so much about is hinge cutting. But hinge cutting is not what everyone thinks it is. And again, huge data sets, real world data. There was no hinge cutting when Daniel Boone was walking around. There was no hinge cutting when Lewis and Clark were going across the Great Prairie and wrote about untold numbers of deer, elk, bison, antelope, all that stuff. Folks, critters survive just fine without hinge cutting. Fortunately, more recent research is showing that hinge cutting actually becomes what I call a predator food plot. It's easy for a coyote to get around under that hinge cut stuff, but very tough for a deer to get out there in a quick hurry when a pack of coyotes is after them. I'm going to summarize this like this. Here at the Proving Grounds, we don't have a single hinge cutting tree. And y'all watching our videos are probably like to hunt here, hunt deer here, hunt turkeys here. We chase poachers, so don't think about it. But hinge cutting is not the save all. Maybe it helps you, and I've seen some research, well, you know, we took this block of hardwoods here and we didn't do anything. And we hinge cut over here and there's more deer over here. Well, yeah, it's the best option for when you've got a bare biological desert next to it. But there are many better options, many better options, especially down south where the growing seasons are so much longer and those hinge cut trees grow quick and out of effective cover or food quickly. If you're way north, it's a very short growing season and that's the best you can do, then it's a viable option. I'm not saying you never use it, but it's not the best option in the vast majority of cases. A lot of people associate cover with bedding areas. And humans think about bedding areas as going to bed in the same place day after day after day. That's what most people do. Well, that's not a deer. And again, I tell hunters, the best thing you can do as a hunter is stop thinking like a human and start thinking like a deer. What do they need to survive? And deer often bed multiple different places within a 24-hour period. The sun's out, they want to be where the sun's shining. The wind's blowing really hard out of the west, they want them on the east side of a slope to get a little warmer, or whatever it is. Predators are working over here, they're going to move over here. So I like multiple bedding areas on a property, depending on the size of the property, of different structures. We've got a bunch of felled cedars where grass has grown up in, we've got just grass, we've got more open areas, so we've got areas down by the creek, so when it's really hot, they can cool off a little bit. You need to think about what a deer needs under different conditions. Put yourself in that deer, think like a deer, and think about all the possible conditions and what you can apply to the area you hunt.
Growing Deer is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Also by Green Cover Food Plots, Winchester, PH Outdoors, Black Widow Bows, Moultrie, Steel, Fleet Outdoor Apparel, Burrell Targets, Fourth Arrow, Soil Pro Outdoors, Scorpion Venom Archery, Case IH Tractors, Burris Optics, and Redneck Hunting Blinds.
Cover is obviously a critical resource for deer on a day-to-day basis. But how does that apply to hunting? Do you hunt in the cover? Do you hunt near the cover? Typically, it's better to hunt near the cover and catch deer coming and going. If you get in a cover, you're most likely, if it's good quality cover, you either can't see the deer or you're going to alert deer. So it's very important to think about, again, my approach, hunt, and exit strategy. And if I know they're in this cover, but they're gonna leave for food, how can I get in the middle? And there's several advantages of that. In transition zones, you're less likely to alert deer. If it's quality cover, all the odds are in the deer's favor. The wind is swirling, or you can't approach without making noise, all these factors. But in transition zones, the deer have to give up some of their advantages to get from point A to point B. You can't have the wind always in your favor when you're traveling. So I rarely hunt cover except during the rut. I like to hunt overlooking cover. That's usually using my Winchester, not my bow. I'm in a redneck blind overlooking the other hillside where I've made a lot of cover. That's a very effective strategy. But in general, I want to hunt where I'm either looking into cover or in between cover and food, but not directly in cover. I'm going to alert deer, and that not only decreases my chances of putting venison in the freezer, but when we alert deer, of course, that adds more stress to deer, which is something we certainly want to do during harsh winter conditions. If you've got some land you hunt, your land, your granny's land, whatever, and you don't have cover there, it's just a wide open desert of closed canopy forest or something like that, there are different ways to create it. Maybe you're doing a clear cut. Maybe it's pines and you're clear cutting and letting it grow back up, or using prescribed fire to stimulate the growth and remove leaf litter, or you're converting an old fescue pasture to a mix of warm season grasses, native grasses. There's a lot of ways, but it should be site specific. And this is what I see a lot of people getting in trouble with. They see something on the internet. I know we're on the internet. Oh, I'm going to apply that here. Well, that lesson was for a totally different habitat, a different context. The number one rule for having a good habitat and hunting plan is the context of that exact property. That's what Daniel and I do. We help, of course, a lot of landowners, and it's never a boilerplate or a cookie cutter recipe. We consider everything and put it in context with that landowner and the resources available. Having good cover is critical for all of us, whether you're a deer or a human. But you know, the best way to have the best cover is have the protection of God. And we do that by accepting Him as our Savior, seeking His will for our lives, and applying it daily. Thanks for watching Growing Deer.